for now. Let's call it YourManJeff Live. All right. So up until now, we've done a little bit of playing on here. If you want to join us, we are on YouNow.com/YourManJeff. If you join there, you can join our conversation. And we're also simultaneously broadcasting on YouTube, and you can watch the replay a little bit later. The show will grow and evolve, but our goal with the first few episodes is really to get to know you, to let you get to know me a little bit, and we can enjoy a bit of a conversation. For the most part, it'll be one-sided until we start getting a few guests, but as time goes on, not only will the set improve, there's not a whole lot going on here, but also the quality of the show, the name of the show, maybe we'll have graphics, maybe we'll have some lower third stuff. We'll work with OBS in the coming months, but I just want to welcome you to the first official episode. Today we're going to go ahead and talk about some of the stuff I've been watching on Netflix, and I'm going to ask you guys for a little bit of help. Is there a show that you want to watch together that we could go episode by episode through? Just to break the ice, we've started with White Rabbit Project, the show from the people you may remember from Mythbusters, and they've come up with a new show, and I think you're going to like it. If you liked what was going on in Mythbusters and you want to see more practical applications of science, this show is very entertaining, and we watched the first episode, mainly focusing on superpowers. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Second, if you're a fan of Ricky Gervais or any of the other shows that he has, you might have heard of a little guy, little round-headed buffoon named Carl Pilkington. He's back in season 2 of The Moaning of Life. Granted, if you're in Europe, like some of my viewers are, if you're in Britain or if you're in Australia, you've probably already seen series 2, but now it is available on Netflix. So I've managed to crush all 6 episodes, and I had a grand time watching it. So we'll talk a little bit about what I liked on there. And again, I ask you guys, is there a show you'd like to watch together? Once again, if you want to join the conversation, we are live on YouNow.com/YourManJeff. YourManJeff. Pretty easy to spell. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. What? We don't have any music. And I can't throw any YouTube music on because then they get a little antsy about that. First and foremost, how you doing? Did you have a good day? I hope you had a good day. I had a pretty decent day. And now I get to be here with you and share some time together. This last week, we've been playing on YouNow. It's a website that I guess has been around for quite a few years. I didn't know a whole lot about it until about a week ago. And it allows us the opportunity to do live chat. And I've always wanted to host a podcast. I've always wanted to do it live. I think there's more fun in that. I want to do the conversation thing, asking and answering questions. And this is a quick way to do that. It didn't take a whole lot. We got a camera, we got a microphone, we got a stuffed animal dog. We have me learning how mirrored cameras work. Good times. So we really don't know where we want to take the show, but the point is to get it going, right? Start with an idea, make it happen, make it reality, and then refine over time. Since I want to get to know you guys, I asked the question, who are you, where are you from, what do you do for a living, and let's go with a question for this week. What movies have you seen recently, and what are you looking forward to heading into the holiday season and beyond? Right now, we're participating in a movie draft. Rogue One did really well after its first weekend, as to be expected for a Star Wars movie. But obviously, it is the winter months, and it earns a lot less than you would think. Nick's joining us in chat, so hi Nick. We're doing the first official episode, so welcome to the chat. We are going to talk a little bit about the White Rabbit Project in a second here, but I asked the viewers What movies have you seen recently? What are you looking forward to seeing? Rogue One. What were your thoughts on Rogue One? It's been a week. Every site has spoiled the heck out of it. And really, having seen a lot of those reviews and after seeing the movie, I get where the guys at Red Letter Media are coming from, right? The way that Kevin Smith sort of pitched it, it was like the first film that you didn't have to go see all the other movies to really get. I don't think that's the case. I think Rogue One is very much a film for fans. And as a result, we ended up with a lot of Easter eggs that were they weren't very cleverly hidden, and I'm hoping the next viewing that I go into the movie, I find some more things that I didn't quite notice. But, like, obviously, there's blue milk, right? Spoiler. There's blue milk. And spoiler, there's people from episode 4. Lots of people from episode 4. To the point where it's like, if they were in the background, like some characters are, right? That if they weren't, like, very clearly obvious, there was, like, a wampa. And a white one at that. There wasn't, like, a desert wampa. It was like a white wampa, and it was just in the background, super obvious. And if they weren't super obvious in the background, they would bump into your characters and be like, "Hi, remember me? I am in that Star Wars movie, A New Hope. Have you heard of it? It is called Star Wars. This is based in that universe, but I am from that movie that you know, from the 70s." There's a lot of that. I enjoyed that part of it. It was a little in your face, a little too obvious, but at the same time, I had a grand old time. If you've never seen a Star Wars movie, and I've encouraged people who haven't seen the Star Wars movies to go see this, I really want to know what you thought. I want to know how confused you were. Was it really... None of the characters would seem to make sense if you hadn't seen Star Wars Episode 4 and had that moment where, like, none of this makes any sense. I don't know why you people like this. So I'm interested in hearing what you think. All right, let's go into the show. White Rabbit Project. What do you think? They announced the show at Dragon Con, and I happened to be at that Dragon Con, and it was on my schedule to go see. But as with every convention, there's 2 or 3 things, and sometimes you get lost, you go to the wrong hotel, you end up seeing something different. I missed the launch. I missed when they announced that White Rabbit Project was going to happen. But what I did not miss was running into 2 of the 3 hosts a little bit later that day as they went to celebrate at dinner. And that was a treat, because I was not expecting those folks to walk in. I heard the voices behind me. I was like, that sounds familiar. That sounds familiar. Hey, it's Carrie. What? And Tori. What? They asked a question, I answered it. It was a big moment for me. Probably nothing for them. That's alright. What is White Rabbit Project? Well, if you liked the folks from Mythbusters, and you liked what they were doing, blending science and pop culture to answer questions maybe 13 to 15-year-old version of you would ask, you're going to love this show. I've only seen the first episode. It's regarding superhero powers. They test 6 of them. They try to assess them objectively, and it's kind of hard to do, but it was also a good insight into new technology, how you harness technology, and how a superpower might actually play out if you were trying to be. In this particular case, there was a lot of evil villain superpowers. First episode, what do they cover? They cover mind control. They start with that project to mind control a mind control a cockroach using robot parts, right? They make it such that you press a button on your iPhone and the cockroach goes one way or the other. They explain how that works in the episode. But of course, Carrie's not happy with that. She wants to control a human. She wants mind control. And they do a fun little project where they hook up sensors and send a signal from there into somebody else, a corollary person, right? They're hooked up too. So what you do impacts their electronic impulses and causes their arms and hands and mouth and face and what up? There's all sorts of things they hooked him up to, and he was just getting shocked like this. It's really funny. Another thing that happened, those guys that do the jet wing out of the helicopters, they're basically base jumping. They jump out of the helicopter, they do the jetpack, and they have a good old time. It's as close as we can get to Iron Man for right now. If you ever tried to think about how to fly like Iron Man, he makes it seem really easy. But there is nothing aerodynamic or there's nothing there to generate enough lift like you see in the movies. It'd be very hard to control. If it weren't for his power core, Iron Man would not be able to function. It just uses too much energy. So we got to see a little bit of that. They have the jetpack. They have the parachutes. They have fun. What are some of the other things? See, does that? Yeah, a lot of cool little super tricks. What does he do? He wants to have the power of electricity, and so he dons a Faraday cage suit, and he hops on top of a few Tesla coils, and he lights up some ninja targets. Tori does it. It's pretty fun to watch. So, the show itself is mostly like a competition between the hosts so far. Could be something totally different next episode. But it was fun to watch the competition between the three of them as they came up with a few practical ideas on what they could do. I skipped Grant. Grant had a couple of them. First, he was testing invisibility. How to make the human person invisible. Well, they only really attacked one scientific angle on that. And it just happened to be with how light bends around an object. That was interesting. But where he got really close to doing something cool was he had a liquid nitrogen gun that shot water out the top, causing a stream of ice to hit the enemy. It was super practical. It had a lot of stuff going on, but it was effective. For the example that he had, it was pretty effective. Basically a Mr. Freeze ray gun. And it worked. It worked for him. So I recommend going and seeing that. Baby Fia, thank you for joining the conversation. Thank you for the likes. We're talking about White Rabbit Project at this point in time. Have you seen the show? If you've seen the show, tell me what you think. We've watched episode 1. Should we watch episode 2? For the next episode of this, why not? We'll just set that as the goal. We'll set the goal as watch episode 2 on Netflix of the White Rabbit Project. Join us next Thursday. Hopefully I'll be back from Vegas and I can do a live cast. And we will discuss what happens in episode 2. I enjoyed it. It was good to see the old crew back together. And I hope you enjoy it too. The next show we're going to talk about is The Moaning of Life. I finished season 2, series 2, call it what you will. It's on Netflix as well. So check it out. Carl Pilkington, a guy who, when he first started, was very against travel, very against making himself better, and very against learning about other cultures and people. Ricky Gervais sent him around the world several times in Idiot Abroad. They would send him to locations that most of us would want to travel to, but they'd make him stay in the slummiest of slums and eat the grossest foods and partake in activities that nobody would really want to. Instead of swimming with dolphins, they'd throw him in with swimming with sharks. And that was an Idiot Abroad. He's grown a bit. And now he doesn't have a couple people, specifically Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant. He doesn't have them egging him on. He's in The Moaning of Life, not The Meaning of Life, because Carl still complains. But in his complaints, the way he processes the world is very interesting. He moans about what's going on, but there's always a nugget of wisdom in what he says. So I recommend going to Netflix and watching The Moaning of Life Season 1. And then you get caught up, you can watch Moaning of Life Season 2. He tackles big philosophical concepts. In Season 2, there were ones like the concept of time, the concept of age, the concept of identity and who you are, the concept of art. We're not going to talk about my eyebrows instead. We're talking about a show. We can talk about my eyebrows in a few minutes. And maybe if you joined on time, Christy, it might be strictly US Netflix. Hopefully it gets over to Canada, but usually you guys get BBC shows before we do. This is a BBC production, and odds are it aired back in 2015. And if you were into torrenting stuff, you probably already saw it. So I highly recommend The Moaning of Life as well. You don't have it? Well, I'm sorry. I'm sure it's on YouTube. You can watch a clip, if not a full episode, because it's great. Watching Carl put on an age suit, or there's one where they send him and he goes and dresses up in Thailand. In this recent series, what else did he do? I mean, in art, he joins a group of people that what they do in New York City is they like to turn dog poop into art. So what they do is they buy props or sprinkles, and they go out on their daily walk and look for dog poop on the sidewalk, and they just fancy it up just a little bit. And then they take photos, and that's art. So what does Carl do? He does the Loch Ness Monster. He gets really fixated on that. It's a series of dog poops mixed with a clay dragon head. So he's like, what about that is art? And he goes, well, I guess, it's turning something that people would normally not pay attention to, and you're making it something people look at and have to acknowledge. You're watching White Rabbit Project on Netflix. Neat. See? We just watched the first episode. We're going to watch the second episode for next week, Aphrodite. So if you want to join us on that one, we'll do it. I think I get back next Thursday, which would be great. If not, I'll record as best I can near 7 o'clock on next Thursday. Yeah, but this is, for those of you that have joined just fairly recently, this is the first episode. We're doing an official episode. We're kicking it off. I don't really have a name for the show. We'll get a show name, right? We'll get a show theme. We'll get a better set. We'll get better lighting. It'll be fun. So, now that we've had a little bit of fun doing that, what should we talk about besides my eyebrows? Unless you want to talk about my eyebrows. It's a bit much. If you guys don't have questions, right? Because this is a discussion between me and you and me. My life story will take a long time. Am I ready for Christmas? I have not done any shopping, but I also don't really celebrate Christmas because I'm atheist. But I also buy gifts for people so they don't think I'm only atheist because I don't want to spend money on them. It's really weird. I don't really like the commercialization of the holiday, but at the same time, you can't hate that, not celebrate Christmas, and get away with being atheist. So you end up buying people gifts. Certainly can. So, not life story. Let's see. What I wanted to share, if we didn't have like a ton of topics, was basically that book that we'd been talking about in our pre-show talks. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now, I don't care how old you are. That book will take about a couple hours to read. You'll want to read through it once a year, maybe more. Maybe you'll find tips and tricks that you have to remind yourself. He breaks it out very logically, right? You don't have to read the book again every time. You can just read the rules. And if you want to remember what the rules are about, you can go back and read the chapter. How to Win Friends, Influence People. Dale Carnegie, check it out. That is a book that has not necessarily changed my life, but it's made me rethink how I interact with people. And it's been great so far. You know, I'm taking the course mostly so I can become a better communicator. And what better way to do that than to practice. And this is how I'm going to do that. I'm going to communicate with you guys and build an audience and have fun and see what all of this is really like. What's a good life philosophy? Oh, it really depends on what stage of life you're in. I always go with the one word push, right? Everybody thinks they can't do something, but if you just keep pushing, you can do it. I know a lot of people that don't understand their own self-worth, or they put themselves down, or they don't think they're capable of doing something. And the thing is that they're not only worth more than they think they are, they can do those things that they think they can't. They just need to be put in a position to do it. They need some help doing it, maybe some instruction, maybe some motivation. Maybe they just need a little bit of finances to get it going. But I think more often than not, it's not money that's holding you back. It's your brain. And you can do those things that you're afraid to do. Whether it's running a 5K or skydiving or learning how to play a musical instrument or coming on here and putting yourself out for the whole world. Just do it, Nike, right? But like push. You think you're done, you can always go a little bit further, right? If you can see the finish line, just kick it out. Push to the finish line. Next question is, would you rather be invisible to everyone except your crush, or only be invisible for your crush and friends? That's a weird, rough question. How lonely would it be, right? Think about that. If you were invisible to everyone except your crush. The world would literally consist of you, a bunch of gray blobs, and then your crush. Christy, I have a show for you. Hands up in the audience if you've seen Black Mirror. Because there's an episode about that question. And it would be weird to be invisible for my crush and my friends. That episode tackles that as well. The whole episode starts out that people, at some point in the near future, we've integrated technology so well into our mind that they have a device like this, and what you can do is you look at somebody's being mean to you out in the streets, or they're yelling at you, or they're just being mean. In this episode, the worst thing you can do is block them. What happens? That person still exists. They're just a gray amorphous blob. You can't hear them. You know they're there. They're invisible for all intents and purposes, but it's crazy. Kill them. No, you can't kill them, Christy. So they explore this idea. What happens like if you get in a fight with someone? They block you, and then they just run off. I won't spoil the story. But there's also what happens when you get punished and you're blocked from everyone, right? Everybody just sees you as a red blob because you're like a criminal or something. But when he looks around, all he sees is white blobs. So he can't communicate with them. He can't do anything with them. He's the most lonely guy in the world, and he's surrounded by a bunch of people that can't see him. It's interesting. And there's a lot of great episodes of Black Mirror. So if Black Mirror, which is another, like, one of those UK shows on Netflix, if you want to watch that, we can do that one episode at a time. Would I rather be too cold or too hot? I would rather be too cold. You can do something about being too cold. You cannot do a whole lot about being too hot. What's the point of living? It is to be. And if you want more than that, sorry. Life's not going to give you that much more of an answer. Would I rather watch my parents do it forever or join once to stop it? It's not a very PG question. I wouldn't, neither. This is the opposite of Taco Girl. This is neither. Is there a meme with neither on it? Why are those the options? Yeah, being a color blob. Do I have any siblings? Sorry, I didn't see that question earlier. Yeah, I do have family members, but I'll never tell you. Ha 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 ha. That's to the evil villains in the audience who want to do harm to everybody. We'll just say I have 10 brothers and sisters, and they're all living in Antarctica. So go there, do your worst. Thank you for all the likes. Let's see. Yeah, am I ready for Christmas? I mean, we started with that one. And really, I'm about to go on vacation, so yeah. I'm about to go on vacation on Saturday, and so I will be trying to take some of those lessons out of my Carnegie course, apply them in person in a situation where I normally have a lot of social anxiety. Vegas has never been as bad as like Walmart, though. I think it's the lighting, the concentration of people, and everybody's just in a weird mood. Whereas in Las Vegas, no, everybody's there, but nobody cares that you exist, right? Everybody sort of leaves you alone. I get along better in Vegas. But as far as meeting and talking to people, if I don't know them or don't really talk to them, but Vegas is one of the few places in the world where you always know someone. You always know somebody there. For no reason at all. I'll go there, I'll hop on an elevator, and it'll be 4 people from my high school. And that's happened twice. That has happened twice. Had nothing coordinated, didn't say anything on social media, just made the mind up to go to Vegas. I show up, I go to my hotel, in the elevator, people from high school. It's fun. It's wonderful. Like, I've never... How else... You couldn't do that in New York. Maybe you could do it near your hometown. Las Vegas, you can. Would I rather destroy everything I touch or never feel anything at all? I think I would rather never feel anything at all, just because that is a unique sensation, right? The absence of sensation, I would think, would be an interesting sensation. You wouldn't know anything different. Destroy everything you touch means like you either become an evil villain or you just go. I don't know. Maybe there's something to destroying everything you touch. That means you can never be held or hugged or loved or anything, but that would be interesting. I still would prefer to feel nothing. Call me emo, bro. Have I always been atheist? No. There was a point in college where, I started seeing that, like, wait, that guy believes kind of the same thing as that guy, but they don't agree on this, and so they think they're gonna go to this place that's fire all the time? Okay. And then this guy doesn't believe any of that, but he seems pretty happy. Buddhist, right? And then the Jewish guy catches flack for believing in the same thing, just older? What is this? You start reading more stuff. You start saying, like, okay, these aren't literal tales. Okay, some of these stories make great campfire stories. Oh, hang on, they were all told verbally, and then somebody wrote them down, and then, oh, guess what? People translate that stuff, and when it's translated, it doesn't always sound the best, right? If you've ever picked up a Clifford book that was in Spanish, and you try to read it, and you've learned Spanish, and you say it in English, it's totally different. So there's a lot of ideas, good ideas, but they have to be presented in story form in a way that you remember them so you could tell other people. And they have to carry some sort of lesson. One of the first things that I liked was the Aesop's fables versus the Bible. Put them against each other. Like, if you mixed up all the stories, could you really tell the difference? If you assign names to, instead of them being animals, if they had names, like human names, would you know the difference between a moral story in one and a moral story in the other? Besides the violence? Probably not. But there's always good news. There's always good news in there. Am I against them? No. Am I angry at them? No. Believe what you want. Enjoy your life. Just don't hurt other people. Pretty simple. They assume that atheists can't have morals or ethics or whatever. Blah. If you only have one life to live, you treat it a little bit more special. Just a little bit. Emily joined us. How you doing? I know you're a little bit early. We started our first official podcast. We're trying to go for about an hour. I think an hour is good for a show. I think we can do an hour without running into too many pauses. But it's fun. Next question. Well, I guess we'll wait for the next question. Right now, Emerald Witch says, I've been to 14 schools, so I'm always running into people that know me, but I don't remember them. Have you ever experienced this? If you've moved to a new city, have you noticed that your doppelganger is there? Maybe not your doppelganger, but your friends' doppelgangers? They look almost exactly like your friends that you've always known, but you're in a new school. Yeah. Emily says she's seen it. Isn't that weird? How do you even approach that? It's like when the Simpsons go to Shelbyville. Or when they're like Bart and that kid's name is Bort. Yeah. I think everybody should get to meet their doppelganger, right? And I know it's like a silly concept to find somebody that's just a little bit like Bizarro you, but there's also something kind of neat about it biologically. If you think about it, you're like, how many things had to go right? How many things had to happen to produce a person that kind of looks exactly like you? It's interesting to think about. Then you get into this idea of how old are we really? Like, the Civil War was what, 1860s? 1960? We're not even near 2060, so we're like 150 years. 160 years? 170 years? That's not a long time at all. It's crazy. How about this? You think it's a doppelganger. You're in a totally different city. Their hair color's a little bit different. And it's actually someone you went to school with before. Like, hey, how you been? I had to go up to her and I was like, excuse me, is your name Sharon? And it was her. She was blonde now. I was like, whoa, what happened? I haven't seen you in like 3 years. Why are you here? What happened? What's going on? That was an interesting experience. Your buddy had one in his town, and his dad once even pulled over to offer him a ride thinking it was his own son. That's awkward, right? Some things you can go, you ever walk in a crowd and you think it's somebody, and you go, hey! And then they turn around and you're like, no, the guy behind you, oh well. You can kind of play that one off. You can't play off pulling over and saying, hey, you need a lift, and then going, oh wait, you're not my son, goodbye. Christy, are you leaving us? Why are you leaving us? the first episode. Well, that's interesting. So YouTube enables... Emerald Witch is saying that there's a documentary on Netflix about twins adopted out to different families that find each other through YouTube. Now, did they know that they were part of twins? I assume that has to be the point of the story. What got them triggered. It wasn't like, hey, I was watching iJustine and then I realized that I look exactly like iJustine and I thought, hey, maybe we're twins, and it turns out we are. Not me specifically. I've got the better facial hair. We're number 61 on guys. Let's keep it up. They didn't know they were twins. That'd be the doppelganger search, right? You're like, wow, that girl looks a lot like me. Oh, look, she was born kind of in the same area as me. Oh, hey, you know, we kind of went almost to the same school. Huh. I've never had that experience. The experience I have had is when I got to my college, there was a guy who'd basically grown up parallel to me. Went to school kind of near where I was. Went to middle school at the opposite school from me. We were both supposed to go to the same high school. And then our parents both said, no, we're not going to that high school. So we went to the suburbs nearby and went to a high school. We didn't go together. So we went to like the third parallel schools. And we arrived together at the Air Force Academy. And it wasn't until the sophomore year that I met him. And then we have the same birthday. I'm just a year, I think I'm a year younger than him. We can talk about my school age and all that, but same birthday. It's kind of weird. And then we both got the same job out of the academy. He got assigned to one base, I got assigned to another base, doing the same job. It's crazy. There's a lot of coincidences. But at the same time, it's like, you think the world is this big thing that's been around forever. Everybody's got processes that have been around for ages. Someone has this stuff figured out. And then slowly, as you get older, you go, wow, not only do they not have this figured out, but I'm the first person to ever suggest doing X and Y and Z, and we've never figured that out. In the history of humankind, I'm the first person to come up with this idea. That happens a lot. It's like, oh, well, yeah, 150 years ago, Civil War. Huh. Civil rights movement is 50 years ago. Feels like it's always been around. Feels like we've always had these powers. Women's suffrage. That's not even 100 years old, is it? If it is, it's like right at 100 years old. It's weird. YouTube for Life says, I wouldn't want to meet my doppelganger. There's only room for one awesome looking person, and that's her. She said, and that's me, but that's not me. I'm not awesome looking. I got the face for radio and the will to prove it. One lived in the U.S. and the other lived in France, going back to the twin story. Yet, how would you even... how often are you watching French YouTube? Never, right? There's some dude in Russia that looked exactly like me. I wouldn't know. How do you know that? Just the sheer odds that you would find an identical twin. With no, like, help. We live in a nice age. Instant communication. They did. And then they killed each other, right? Or they swap lives. Prince and Paupers. One was actually royalty, and the other one was a peasant that lived in an alley. Is that what happened? Wow. DNA test. And found out they were identical. Interesting. Yeah, usually you don't want to take the DNA test because it's like you take the DNA test and then like, oh yeah, you're actually my father. You owe like 18 plus years worth of child support. I know I look like you because I'm your spawn, jerk. Yeah, they could have curbed that story just a little bit. So what other questions you got? We're at 40 minutes. We got 20 minutes to kill. Did I start a story and not finish? Because I can do that. I'm no Kevin Smith. Man, that guy can go on a tangent for an hour and a half and finish it and go. And so that's why I like the color blue. Moving on. Next question. And you're like, what? He did it. He did it. I cannot. Audience left. That's a shame. Kevin Smith is a good guy. I find that in Hollywood, or just in any podcast in general, the more human that they are, and the more real that they are, and the more humble they are, and how much more they care about their fans and saying hello, the more I am inclined to say, like, that's a good dude. I would love to hang out with that guy. And Kevin Smith is one of those guys. He just puts it all out there. He's trying to do this motivations lately. And I think he's on the right track. I would love to hang out with him and focus that a little bit more. His messages are pretty close, right? And his stories it's there. It's all conceptually there. It just needs a little, like we don't need to turn marble into David. We just need to turn the Play-Doh into the shape of a little happy dog, zebra, or whatever we're trying to make. He's there, and I kind of wonder if he's read any of these books that talk about that, and if those books would change his life any. But it looks like he's mostly figured out how to roll with the punches, how to just understand that people aren't going to like everything you do, and who cares, because it's about the people who like what you do. Because in the grand scheme of things, nothing really matters. You're a tiny little blip in the tiny little history of this tiny little rock that's floating in this giant, massive amount of space. And if you're lucky, people remember you for 100 years. Well, I mean, and this is the height of that, right? Spending too much time worrying about other people or what they think about them negatively, right? I think the thing that I've been working on the most is how to be more optimistic, how to be less pessimistic, how to be less of a sarcastic a-hole, because my head is always in the negative space. I'm always having negative thoughts. I'm always wanting to be like, make that joke that sort of takes away from something else's value, rather than being a creative person or a creator. And so this is my therapy in a way. I'm spending more time with you guys. I want to say positive things about you guys. I want to bump you up. I want to hold you up. And I want us all to get better and become better people and have a better time. I think it's great. Yeah, focusing too much on what people think of me and what people are doing with their own lives. I don't know. I think there's something interesting about understanding how other people live their lives and what makes them tick and what drives them. Lately, I've started reading books on Stoicism. The part of the book that I'm reading is pretty depressing in the sense that it is that whole thing. It's like the one thing we all share in common is that we all come into the world the same, and we all die for way longer than we're ever alive. And what are we going to do with those years that when you're alive? Are you going to worry about what Kim Kardashian's doing today? I hope not. You're going to worry about her little sister doing things? I hope not. Are we going to worry about what the new president-elect says he's going to do? A little bit, right? I'd like my house to be intact for the remainder of when I live in this house. Think about all the transgender stuff right now. You might not care. I don't understand why a lot of people do. A lot of the stuff people are getting inflamed about now aren't new concepts. They're not new things. They're just talked about now, and we have forums and a way to discuss these things that are not even taboo. It's just they weren't talked about because not enough people knew, right? Like atheism, like I had no idea that was a thing. I had no idea that was a thing I could do. Agnosticism, had no idea that would make me go to church. And they were like, well, you get to sit in this room because you don't believe in Jesus. Okay. Why does everybody in there believe that? And why are there like 8 different types of churches here? What is the point of all of this? The transgender stuff is kind of, it's interesting, right? Because I think most people, they just don't understand it. Like why or how or any of that. So we're having a discussion. I think it's important to have the discussion, but it's also important to ignore the trolls because they're never going to join the train. They're never going to come on board. They're just going to be mean and out there and hate things that are different. There's always people like that. Try to ignore them. That's all you can do. Katie's back. How you doing? Exactly. Yeah. Other people's choices don't affect you. For the most part, they don't, right? If it was something like, well, if we allow homosexuals to get married, well, then we have to raise taxes 30%. And then you'd be like, well, okay, I don't know what the connection is, but I am clearly interested in not having that happen. But there's no impact. In fact, don't married people pay a little bit more in taxes? If I don't know. It just seems to me like, again, life is super short. This little blip on this tiny rock in the middle of nowhere. And we're only around for, if we're all lucky, maybe we exist another 50, 60 years. If we're super, super lucky, we exist another 70 or so years. But that's not likely for most of us. So, within the scope of not hurting other people, right? You can throw a golden rule or whatever you want in there. You just want to go and enjoy your life. Do something fun. Do something adventurous. People are scared of jumping out of airplanes. I understand that. You have this thing in your head that says it's scary. Completely understand. But you do have this unique opportunity at this point in time in history to be one of the first couple million people to ever step foot out of an airplane and enjoy a free fall, a new experience like swimming, right? Imagine the first million people that learned how to like swim. You have that opportunity. And there's nothing quite like being under canopy. The silence. You're free. You've got this spectacular view. It's usually a pretty warm day. It's calm and cool. You can just enjoy the scenery and see the entire horizon, 360 degrees. It is wonderful. Why would you deny yourself some of these cool things? Lovely N is watching or was watching. If you're still here, say hi. Thank you for inviting some fans to the broadcast. It's the first episode, right? I didn't expect a ton of people. One of our goals is to hit 100 subscribers, 100 fans on YouNow.com/YourManJeff. We're trying to hit 100 fans by 1 January. I just started the site. It's not too much to ask. We got people with like a couple 100,000 fans. I'm going for 100. And I think everybody else that has already become a fan, we're sitting at like 85. So I'm not asking for 100 new fans. We're asking for like 15. So if you like what you've seen, if you want to help contribute, if you want to be part of my show, let me know. Leave it in the comments, either in YouTube or YouNow or anywhere. You can skywrite it if I'm near. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to talk about, what your questions are. It's a lot easier to do a structured show when there's a bit more structure. The first one we had to do kind of free flow. Talk about what we were watching. Something you guys probably won't watch, but I thoroughly enjoyed. I was watching Spy School on Netflix. I thought it was a series. It was specifically about Camp X, the first spy school in North America. I love watching that stuff. And thinking about it, again, time period wise, this was before World War II. They saw that there was a threat. They built this straight up X-Men school out in Canada, and then they hired people who knew a lot of stuff to come teach, and they wrote the manual on how to be an effective spy in North America. Legit spy school. This was an effort where Canadians, the US, and the British were working together to train what eventually became the OSS, which became the CIA. So these guys were out there in Japan blowing up bridges. They were skydiving into the back of the enemy lines in Europe. These were the ones that were coming up with, like, this worked, that didn't. James Bond, maybe, the guy who wrote James Bond, apparently might have spent some time at this school. That's pretty neat. And it's real. It's not some dude sitting behind a computer writing, and then James Bond jumped in a car and did some cool stuff. No, these are like people really putting their lives on the lines to stop a huge threat, to provide the intelligence that was needed to keep North America safe. You always wondered how people get into those crazy jobs. Well, I think a lot of it comes from these intelligence agencies. They recruit from colleges. Specifically, the younger you are and closer to a PhD you are, the better off you might be, the more useful you are. Like, most of the intelligence community ends up being more like Q than they are like James Bond. But it helps if you know how to take a punch and throw a punch, and you got a PhD. You might have the unique solution to a unique problem that the world is having right now. I think we all secretly were like, hey, what's up, GCHQ? I'm here. You wanna, let's do something. Hey, CIA. Got any gum? You want to work with UFO investigators? Well, okay. So then you could get into Intel. Air Force has some stuff that you might like. I can tell you the stuff that we thought of as unidentified objects were usually just like pieces of metal. So, but we were tracking stuff that was orbiting. So it's like, here comes that piece of metal again. Real exciting. They told me Bigfoot and aliens, and here's a piece of metal again. See it in 90 minutes. That's how it goes. Christmas Character 12 is watching. How has your streams been going? I notice a lot of my viewers head on over your way. I hope you're having a good day. Yeah. And really, at its heart, unexplained, unidentified flying object, you know? When people see weird stuff, people need a way to, like, at least inform somebody. It wouldn't, you go back, I hate bringing it up again, but, like, the time scale is so short, so, like, some of those first ones might have been the only intel we had that an enemy plane was flying overhead. And of course they're not going to tell you that. One, because they either don't find it, or two, how much would it freak you out to know that the enemy has been flying an airplane over your head? No, we were just testing weather balloons. No, we were just testing something else. No, I think you just saw a solar flare. It's alright. Swamp gas, right? Yeah, that is Batman. This is a bat signal, don't worry. There's some good stuff there. But occasionally people just see like, oh, I saw a meteor. Whatever. But now in this digital age, people whip out their cameras. They literally film it. Isn't it funny, in the age of the most cameras ever, there are fewer UFO videos than ever? Huh? Yeah. And that's the thing, right? You fear of the unknown. People love it, or they want to know, or they're terrified. Exactly. Like, you want someone to say, they're there. It's not what you thought it was. It's actually a good thing, and you are perfectly safe. Please go spend money at Walmart. Watch how many times you see that message throughout the day. Everything's fine. All you gotta find. Everything's fine. All you gotta do is go spend more money. You'll be happy. Your stress will go away. It's Christmas. You just gotta go buy gifts. Don't be scared of that thing you saw in the sky. Like, pay no attention to the fact that Russia's doing some wacky stuff out there with satellites. As we saw in the news, today? Was that yesterday? I feel like it was yesterday. I didn't know about it. Somebody had to point it out to me, and I was like, yup, that sucks. What are you going to do? Maybe. Have you seen that they send, like, I don't know. The history of the space program's interesting. Because there were a lot of countries that sent animals one way out into space. I feel bad for those animals. Anyway, Spy School was an interesting show. There's a bunch of other shows I'd like to watch, but I thought it was a full series, and it ended up just being one episode. It turns out if you do want to order the original book on how to be an effective spy, and by the way, this isn't written for someone to go, oh, that's interesting. Oh, hey, that's neat. Oh, is that how someone might do it? No, it's written in the most violent, chaotic manner to be as effective and efficient as possible. And people died there. And these techniques are meant to be used to do some crazy stuff. I just added it to my wish list. The place was called Camp X, not Camp X-Ray. Camp X-Ray is what Guantanamo Bay. We're talking about Camp X in Canada. And if you go to like Amazon, you just look up Camp X and then training manual. It's out there. They declassified what they could of it, and it's on Amazon for like $20. So if you're into spy stuff, I'm into spy stuff. You can go check that out. Thank you for the plus 10. I'm going to wrap this up. We're going to call it at 1 hour, and then we'll come back to do like an after show after we end the live cast. Which means I lose all of the cool likes down here, but if you want to hang out more, I'll be here. We'll chat. Thank you for joining me on the first episode. We talked a lot about a couple TV shows, a couple movies, about what we wanted to do with this podcast. I really want to do it every Thursday. Same bat channel, same bat time. Let's figure out how we can do that. Send me your topics. If you don't send it in the YouTube comment, go ahead and send it to... I guess I have to make an email account, huh? I need an email account. I'll find one. I'll make one. And then next episode, we'll have something for you to send it to. So leave a comment in the YouTubes. Leave a comment in YouNow. Go to Twitter at YourManJeff, YourManJeff. Leave your comments and suggestions there. Subscribe, follow, fan, whatever, right? There's a lot of ways to get to know me. On Instagram as well. My mom found me there, so I guarantee you, you can too. And thank you for a wonderful first podcast experience. I will see you next week on YourManJeff Live, or whatever we call it. Thanks.